Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. Well, I wasn't anticipating at any point during this fight week that I would be doing a prediction video about Joseph Parker and Martin Bakole. But of course, as we know, yesterday's events took us all by surprise. Daniel Dubois has withdrawn due to an illness of some description, like a flu or something. That's the latest that I've seen. Apparently he's been treated with antibiotics, so that would suggest a bacterial infection, because I don't think viruses are treated with antibiotics, but we don't know. Again, you know, there's sort of there isn't a lot of clarity around it, which means, of course, that then there's room for people to talk. And you know, I've done a video myself about whether or not we should have some sort of skepticism, and I've taken some pushback on it, and I've also had some support on it. This channel is a place where we can have healthy disagreements and we can talk about things because, well, that's what we should be doing. We should be talking about stuff. Anyways, hats off, of course, to Martin Bakole for stepping up. Absolutely. It doesn't appear that he was in a camp. He apparently was in the Congo. Then he flew to Ethiopia and he's arriving in Saudi. He may have arrived by the time this video goes out. And of course, full credit to Joe Parker, who could have selected somebody who was had a less fearsome reputation, that's for sure. But apparently Joe Parker said, you know, he wanted to tackle the most difficult opponent, and so massive credit to him. And yes, the fight's going to go ahead, which is great. As fans, we're going to enjoy this. Now, if, and this is of course a massive if Bakole had been in fight shape, he'd had a full 12-week camp, this would be a very, very difficult fight to predict. And I think I would have been, well, I had picked Joe Parker to potentially win on points against Dubois, but I was hedging it with a Dubois KO. And I think I would say the same thing with Bakole, but I would be less confident in Martin Bakole's ability to KO Parker, because I don't think he's quite as fast as Dubois. He's not as young as Dubois, and of course he's not got this amazing run of form. Having said that, Bakole provides a different kind of opponent than Dubois. They both got very, very heavy hands, but there's something about Bakole. First of all, he's got very fast hands. He's got everything else seems incredibly slow, but he's like one of those tanks that seems to be impervious to anything, really. His demolition job of Gerard Anderson, of course, is what we all remember. It's his most recent fight. Now, to be fair, Gerard Anderson fought the wrong fight. I mean, you know, the smaller man shouldn't really ever be standing in front of Bakole and trying to trade shots with Bakole. I don't think Parker would make that same mistake. So I think Parker would fight a smarter fight, and I would, if Bakole was in top shape, I think that as the fight progressed, provided Parker could have kept out of the way for the first half of the fight, he would have been able to edge it in the latter half of the fight. A similar situation to Parker's fight against Zhilei Zhang. Now, of course, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to see a less well-conditioned Martin Bakole take the ring against a peak-conditioned Joe Parker. So we would expect that unless Bakole gets lucky in the first few rounds of the fight and manages to put it on Parker and bring that immense size and power to bear, that we would expect Bakole to fade. And then we will expect Parker not to stop Bakole, but to simply, you know, outpoint him over the distance. That's what we would expect. But of course, to be entirely fair, Parker has trained for somebody different. And will that affect his game plan? Well, yes, it will, because Bakole, while he has similarities to Dubois, isn't Dubois. And so it's possible that Bakole might be able to take advantage of that, that shift in a game plan and catch Parker a little unawares in the early half of the fight. And if that happens, then of course it's a different story entirely. Remember, the last time Parker fought a big, solid, easy to hit fighter with a lot of power, it was Zhilei Zhang. And Zhilei Zhang put Parker down twice. If Bakole can put Parker down, the question then is, will Bakole have enough in the tank to finish him off, which is clearly what Zhang wasn't able to do? This is a big question mark, and it'll be resolved tomorrow one way or the other. There's been some talk about, well, when previous heavyweights have stepped in, they've brought a lot of surprise and a lot of heat to the favorite. For example, Lennox Lewis was going to fight the Canadian Kirk Johnson. Vitaly Klitschko stepped in, and it was almost an upset. Now, Lennox, of course, prevailed, but it was nip and tuck. But of course, Vitaly was training, and he was in peak shape, and he was going to be on the undercard, I think, of that fight. Well, this is different because Bakole is not in peak shape. So I would say that Parker is going to prevail in this fight. But of course, it doesn't really answer the question we would all like to know, which is, who of Bakole or Parker is the better? Because it's a prime shape Parker versus a poorly conditioned Bakole. So if Parker wins, which I expect him to do, there is a small little asterisk that has to be put next to that win, in my mind. If, on the other hand, Bakole should prevail, well, that will be, first of all, it'll be a little bit of a turn up for the books. And what will it say about Bakole? It will absolutely put to bed any questions that Bakole, that there may have been about Bakole. I'm not seeing it happen, but I think it's going to be a very exciting fight. The odds that I checked this morning, decimal odds, okay? Parker's the favorite, 1.63. Bakole, 2.35. So, Bakole's not a massive underdog at all. And because, of course, Bakole's a very, very, very dangerous fighter. It's just that he's not in match shape. So, exciting fight. I'm going to pick Parker, just like I was picking Parker against Dubois. I'm a little bit more confident in some ways, but I'm aware that Parker has trained for Dubois, and now there's a curveball in play. He should prevail, but it could be very, very interesting. I think it'll be a good fight. I'm super pleased that the fight hasn't been scrubbed from the card. I mean, as a fan, particularly of heavyweights, it's great to have another heavyweight fight on here. And then, the question we'll be asking, is where does the winner go? There's also a question, of course, about F.A. Jagbar, who was supposed to be fighting a final eliminator with Martin Bakole. Hopefully he gets compensated somehow, and it'll be interesting to see who he ends up fighting. Maybe Derek Chisora. Oh, dear me. Yes, well, anyhow, that's a video for another day. So hopefully we'll see a good fight tomorrow. I would like to see Bakole put up a good fight. I hope he's not in a really, really bad shape, because that wouldn't give us the true measure of what Bakole's all about. So again, maximum credit to both fighters, and a part of me would love to see an upset. I mean, I can't call myself a fan of because that sort of carries all sorts of implications. I tend to lean towards Joe Parker. I like Joe Parker. I like the way that he conducts himself outside of the ring, his public persona, right? And we never really know these folks unless you maybe do know them, but I don't. But it would be it would be a pity if Bakole shows up in really, really, really poor shape. It wouldn't, people will then say, oh, well, Parker beat him and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's probably not fair. Anyways, let me know what you think. Please hit like, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Wherever you are, have a fabulous day. Thank you. Bye-bye.